Name is Matt Domanic. I am the owner and chief technology officer at Forensic Innovations Group. I conduct digital forensic examinations. I conduct data recovery on numerous different types of devices, both damaged and undamaged. And I conduct a lot of research in the field of digital forensics and data recovery as well.
One of the things that we learned in the affidavit for the case that we're working on is that authorities found a burn pit at the suspect's house, and there were three phones in there, as well as a laptop. How difficult is it to get data off of a burned device?
It is rather difficult, but not impossible. I have been a part of quite a bit of research revolving around recovery of digital forensic evidence from damaged devices and specifically burnt devices. So it's definitely possible. It definitely adds a layer of difficulty in terms of a routine digital forensic examination.
What are some of the variables that might make it more difficult when you're dealing with something that's been damaged in that way?
Well, usually the first thing that happens is, the phone or device will just not function as it was properly. So you can't turn the phone on or the device on to be able to interface with it. So you'll need to actually begin at taking apart the device and trying to get to the core where the memory is stored. So there's usually some type of flash storage or solid state memory technology. And if there's extensive damage to the printed circuit board or the motherboard that's on the device, that actually then creates much more advanced techniques that are required to then recover the data from the device.
So we don't have information yet on if they found anything on those devices. We're sure that law enforcement has more evidence than we are privy to at the moment, so that's something that we're going to be watching. Something else that was interesting in this case is the suspect used a cycle of turning his phone on and off and initiated what authorities are calling a lockdown mode. And they say that that's very rare to see. Are you familiar with this concept of a lockdown mode on a phone and what that could potentially do to trying to get information from it?
Sure. So lockdown mode is a function that's basically available on a few different variety of phones, Android and iOS, that essentially disables biometrics. So you can't log in with a fingerprint, you can't log in with a Face ID, and it also disables any type of screen notification. So, say if law enforcement were to come across a phone that was maybe turned on and had this function enabled on it, they wouldn't be able to see any notifications or anything that might be present on the screen, even if it was locked. And then they wouldn't be able to actually have, either the individual or owner of the device unlock it with either their face or their fingerprint. And a technique that is, used or can be used, in a case where a phone is being turned off and on. In digital forensics, when we come across a device that is actually already turned off, it actually makes it harder for us to be able to retrieve the data from the phone rather than if it was already on when the device was seized and brought to a digital forensics examiner.
Would you say this is a common thing that the everyday person would know how to do with their phone, put it in this lockdown mode?
It's a relatively newer feature on phones. It's been released within the past year. It's not enabled by default, so somebody would actually have to know about that function and be able to utilize it. So it doesn't come automatically enabled on your device when you purchase it or when you set up your phone.
Interesting. So, in a case like this, if you are seeing that someone has burned devices, put a phone in lockdown mode, and has gone to these lengths, what would that tell you about that suspect and the way that they're using these devices?
Well, as an investigator, naturally, I'd probably be very interested that there's probably some type of important data on those devices. Not necessarily saying that that was the intent, but it would definitely pique my interest as an investigator.
So, eventually, because we're sure that law enforcement has more information than we know at this
Mhm.
point. So, is there anything specific that you think that they are looking for or that we should be looking for as they release more information in terms of these devices or other devices that they could be getting information from?
Law enforcement is going to be looking for, any type of digital evidence that they could pull from an individual's device, as long as they have the legal authority to try and obtain that data. And those types of digital evidence can be available not just on cell phones or laptops, but vehicles, IoT devices, drones, mostly anything that has some type of user interface and is an electronic, records some type of data or saves some type of data that may be of use to an investigator. And it's going to be completely case dependent upon whether that device or the data that resides on it is going to be beneficial or not in the case that's being investigated.